What if the reason you feel abandoned by God is not because He left, but because He showed up in a way you didn't expect? Some of you are calling this season silence, but it might be the closest God has ever been. You've been praying for breakthrough, begging for relief, asking God to show up. But here's what nobody tells you. He's already there, right in the middle of your mess. The problem isn't that God's absent. The problem is we've been taught to look for Him in all the wrong places. You thought He'd show up in the promotion, the relationship, the answered yes. Instead, He showed up in the layoff, the breakup, the closed door. You thought it was rejection when it was actually redirection. You thought it was punishment when it was preparation. You called it abandonment when it was divine appointment. Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you're going to recognize God's presence in places you've been calling empty. Your struggle isn't your enemy, it's your invitation. God doesn't just visit you in the victory, He visits you in the valley. When everything else gets stripped away, when the noise dies down, that's when you realize God was never in the things. He was always in the stillness. He was always in you. When life was comfortable, how often did you really seek God? Now, in this struggle, you can't fake it anymore. You can't rely on your own strength. And that's exactly where God wanted you all along. Because He knows that hidden blessings often come wrapped in struggle. He knows that divine purpose is forged in pressure. Here's the pattern nobody talks about in the Bible, and once you see it, you'll never read your struggle the same way again. Moses didn't find God in the palace. He found Him in the wilderness, in a burning bush. Job didn't meet God in prosperity. He encountered Him in the ashes. Jacob didn't receive his blessing in comfort. He wrestled with God all night and walked away with a limp and a new name. God's deepest visits happen in our darkest valleys. Not because He causes the darkness, but because that's when we finally stop running and start listening. That's when the real transformation begins. Stay with me, because this next part changes everything. Your mental health struggles. They're not signs that your faith is weak. This is what nobody told you about anxiety and faith. They're not enemies. Your anxiety, your depression, your stress. These aren't invitations to feel guilty. They're invitations to a deeper spiritual awakening. When anxiety grips your chest at 3 a.m, when stress threatens to crush you, God isn't disappointed in you. He's right there whispering, "I see you. I'm here." This pain isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your transformation. The world will tell you to fix it fast. But God says, "Sit with me in this. Let me turn your anxiety into deeper dependence. Let me transform your suffering into spiritual growth that will carry you through anything." When you learn to hear God in the storm, you'll never fear the storm again. When you recognize His presence in the struggle, you'll never feel abandoned again. Most people miss this, so don't be one of them. We spend so much time praying for God to change our circumstances, but He's more interested in changing us. We're asking for the easy way out, and He's offering us the way through. What if this struggle is the exact place where God wants to meet you? Not to leave you there, but to walk with you through it and bring you out stronger. Here's what happens when God visits you in the struggle. You stop seeing it as something to escape and start seeing it as something to learn from. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What are you teaching me?" That tiny shift in perspective changes everything. Think about the Israelites in the wilderness, 40 years of wandering, but God was there the entire time. Pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. His presence never left them. But they were so focused on where they weren't, they missed where they were, in the presence of the living God, being shaped, being prepared for the promise. You're in your wilderness right now, but God is not punishing you. He's preparing you. Every tear is counted. Every prayer is heard. Every moment of pain is producing something in you that comfort never could. Faith through pain is stronger than faith from ease. And when you finally step into what God has for you, you'll look back and realize that the struggle wasn't the obstacle. It was the pathway. If you've ever felt this, listen carefully. Those unanswered prayers you keep bringing to God, the relationship you prayed for that fell apart, the job you begged for that you didn't get, the healing that hasn't come yet. You thought God said no. But what if God was actually protecting you from something worse? What if His silence was actually His mercy? What if the unexpected answer was the real blessing all along? Someone prays for a relationship to work out, and it doesn't. 3 years later, they meet the person they were actually meant for, and they realize that if God had said yes to the first prayer, they would have missed the real one. The no they received was actually God's protection. Here's the hard truth: we don't know what we need. But God sees the whole picture. So when He says no, or not yet, or not this way, trust that He's saying yes to something better. Trust that His unexpected answers are rooted in His perfect love. Trust that He's not withholding good things from you. He's making room for the right things to enter. You've been looking for God in the big moments, the miraculous signs, but God in everyday life looks different than you think. He's in the friend who texts you exactly when you needed encouragement. He's in the sunset that takes your breath away after a brutal day. He's in the strength you didn't know you had to get through one more hour. God's presence isn't always thunder and lightning. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's just the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still believing. You wanted fireworks, but He gave you faithfulness. You wanted answers, but He gave you His presence. And honestly, His presence is the only answer you'll ever need. Let's get real about expectations. You've been taught that if you pray right, live right, believe right, God will give you what you want. But that's not faith. That's transaction. And when life doesn't go according to your plan, you feel betrayed. But what if your expectations were the problem all along? Break spiritual expectations that hold you back. Stop putting God in a box. Stop demanding that He operate according to your timeline. Stop thinking that struggle means you're off track. Sometimes struggle means you're exactly on track. Sometimes the hardest path is the right path. Jesus didn't promise His followers comfort. He promised them a cross. Paul didn't get rescued from prison. He wrote letters from chains that changed the world. David didn't go straight from shepherd to king. He spent years running for his life, wondering if God had forgotten him. But through it all, God was present. Through it all, God was working. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. Every struggle is stripping away what's not essential so that what's eternal can emerge. Every loss is making room for something greater. Every delay is developing patience you're going to need for the next level. And every moment you feel alone, God is closer than your next breath. Transform suffering into something sacred by recognizing God in it. Don't waste your pain. Let it refine you. Let it draw you closer to the heart of God. Because suffering that's surrendered becomes spiritual growth. Pain that's offered up becomes purpose. Struggle that's walked through with faith becomes strength that nothing can shake. When you pray for clarity, you're asking for eyes to see what God is already doing. You're asking for ears to hear what He's already saying. You're asking for a heart that's open to His presence even when His plan doesn't make sense. That kind of clarity comes from trusting the one who has all the answers. The Bible wisdom you need is already inside you. When anxiety tries to tell you that you're alone, remember Psalm 91. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. When fear tries to convince you that you won't make it, remember Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. These aren't just nice words. They're divine promises. And every promise God makes, He keeps. Your mental health and faith are not at war. They're working together. Your struggle with anxiety isn't a sign that you don't trust God enough. It's a sign that you're human, and God doesn't condemn you for that. He meets you there. He holds you there. He whispers truth over you when your thoughts are lying to you. This is the visit you've been waiting for. Not a dramatic intervention that solves everything in an instant, but a steady presence that walks with you through everything. Not a magic fix, but a faithful friend. Not a distant deity, but a loving Father who's been right beside you the whole time. If you've felt abandoned, if you've questioned where God is, this message is for you. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are being prepared for something beautiful that requires the very struggle you're walking through right now. When a person has only God, they don't collapse. They transform. They become unshakable. They become rooted in something deeper than circumstances. And when they emerge from the struggle, they carry a faith that can't be explained, a peace that doesn't make sense, and a joy that circumstances can't steal. If this word touched your spirit, type in the comments, "God is with me in the struggle." Because when you put it into words, your mind starts to believe what your heart already knows. When you declare it, something shifts. Your perspective changes, your faith rises. If this message blessed you, remember to like this video, subscribe to Divine Pathways, and share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. God is visiting people in their struggles right now, and you might be the one to help them see it. And if you're in a season where God feels silent, watch the next video, because silence is often the loudest way God speaks. God bless you, friend. You're going to make it through this, and you're going to be stronger because of it.